Hey everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and it's good to be back in the studio tonight with you all. And I am doing the second part of a two-part series on the top 10 craziest and most credible UFO sightings. Like I said in the previous show, I really feel like there's so many of these like older stories that everyone's always trying to rehash all the time. And being a representative for the UFO community at other conferences that aren't necessarily UFO related, I often get asked about these specific cases that everyone always talks about. And honestly, I never really sit there and go through these cases myself personally because I don't need to really prove to myself that UFOs are real. I've seen UFOs before myself with my own eyes, so I don't need to sit there and like go through these old cases and try to prove that they're real. But I thought it'd be interesting to do a couple episodes here, just kind of going through all these cases and going through everything with them and just familiarizing myself with them, along with all of you listening here. And if anyone, wants to use any of these stories at any point in a conversation to help prove that UFOs are real, or UAPs, I'm sorry, now it's called UAPs, whatever they call them these days. On my show, we just call them spaceships. It's just a freaking spaceship, okay? It's not a UFO. It's not a UAP. It's not unidentified. It's a spaceship with aliens in it. Or ETs, whatever you want to call them. I know aliens, some people don't like the word aliens. It's like alienist or whatever. But yeah, UAPs, whatever. There's so many names for everything now. And apparently they changed the name from UFO to UAP because they felt like UFOs were too conspiracy theory-ish, so they had to change it to UAP so that people could be taken seriously. And that's just because the show, like, it's just so annoying, all this propaganda crap out here these days. Good to see you in the comments, Jermaine. So Jermaine wasn't able to actually comment on my YouTube show. He was telling me before the show because, something to do with his YouTube account. So I had to let him know. I actually go live from my Facebook also, and not my regular Facebook, but my Facebook page, my Facebook business page. A lot of people don't know I have that. If for some reason you have a issue commenting on YouTube, or if you haven't liked my actual page yet, that's just Apolla Asteria also, but it's just my Facebook business page. So, make sure you like that and follow that, and that'll actually update you when I'm going live also, besides just YouTube. So, pretty cool. Okay. I have a lot to go over today. The last show, I meant to go over all 10 of these old UFO cases in one show, but I could only get through half of them because it's a lot of reading. So, yeah, I'm going to go over the next 5 in tonight's show, and then next Tuesday will be my next show, and I'm not sure what I'm doing for that yet. I may be doing an interview. I think I would like to interview someone for that show, so I'm going to look into that. And then I'm going to be going up to Mount Shasta for a conference. That was kind of decided just recently that I'm going to do that, and that's kind of because I will be actually climbing a mountain on the 10th, which I'm really stoked about, and that's actually in Yosemite. And for some reason I thought Yosemite was near Mount Shasta, so I just kind of agreed to go to this event thinking I would be close by Mount Shasta. But apparently Yosemite is 6 hours south of Mount Shasta, so I'm going to have a crazy adventure ahead of me. I may be able to go live on the road on Thursday, but I highly doubt that. I may be able to. Who knows? We'll see what happens. DJ Sean Thomas says, look for the people of the mountains. Not sure what you mean about that. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that. I know, there are a lot of abduction cases in national parks, also a lot of cryptozoology type cases, and a lot of people, I don't know, I've heard this on a lot of different shows that supposedly people get abducted a lot in national parks because, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that supposedly reptilians are kind of in control of these different areas, and they use these places to like find people and take them for different things. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard it, so kind of interesting. Maybe I'll do a show about that there. I definitely want to record my adventure. So I'm actually going to be climbing the Half Dome, which is called the Cables. Actually, I'm going to show this to you guys because it's pretty wild. And, you know, I've actually done a lot of. I go hiking all the time, and I grew up rock climbing, but I've never done anything quite like this before. I actually had to get my own shoes, my own climbing shoes, and I apparently had to break them in. It's like a way bigger ordeal than I thought it was. So this is what I'm going to be climbing. This thing right here. So this part right here, which is actually like half of is literally like this whole thing is a giant dome, and that's like half of the dome. See, this is what I'll be climbing right here. It actually is a 16-mile round trip hike. Yeah, this part right here is actually the last part, the last like mile of a 16 or probably of like the, I don't know how many miles it takes to get to the top, probably like 8 miles or something like that. So this is the last of that. Then I had to go up there and come all the way back down. I actually have to like clip myself in going up. So it's going to be intense. So hopefully I survive. I'm a little worried, but it's going to be okay because I got the proper shoes. And apparently that's what's most important. I didn't realize this. I normally just climb up mountains in my combat boots. It's just kind of what I do, my fashion combat boots. Everyone's always like, why are you climbing in those? Like, I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of tennis shoes. I just kind of go up mountains in my combat boots that have like spikes and stars on them, and people are like, dude, what the hell are you doing? But it's just what I do. But, you know, I actually went to REI. REI is a cool place. They have this like ramp thing that like looks like a mountain, and you can actually figure out what shoes you need. Apparently there's this thing, like, see, this was another thing. I didn't even know this. Thank God I talked to someone and they helped me out with this. But apparently your toes can't touch the end of your shoe, and you have to like tie them so tight that like around the ankle that your toes don't slide and rub the front of the shoe for when you're going downhill. So I had to go to REI, and they have this like little like mountain thing that you can try on the shoes, and then like you walk down this little mountain thing, like this ramp mountain. It looks like a miniature mountain. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at a comment here. Marco here says Apolla can do it in heels. You know, I've done a lot of crazy things in heels before, but actually I have climbed mountains in boots that had like big chunky heels. I have done that. I tried riding a longboard in heels one time, and that didn't work out so well for me. Just chunky heels, not like, you know, stilettos. But, you know, I'm not sure if I could climb a mountain in stilettos, especially this one. That might be extremely dangerous. But that would be interesting. Definitely be interesting. So, okay. We're going to get back into these stories, these UFO stories here. Before we do that, yeah, these hills are supposed to be really slippery, Jermaine. Yeah, Stu here says 16 miles. OMG, you're in it for a tough hike. Yeah, I know. A little worried about that. It's going to be kind of crazy. Okay, so, oh, Tyler Koala's on here. I haven't seen you on here before. Good to see you. Okay, so before I get started in the top 10 craziest UFO stories, part 2, I'm going to share with you all my Shaman Spear site because, you know, this is pretty much the only thing I am doing these days besides a little acting here and there. And, you know, it's hard out here for a pimp out here in Hollywood. It really is. It takes a lot of time and money to get my studio going. And, you know, it's just been a lot of work. So, and YouTube isn't really giving me a whole lot yet. So if you would like to help support me and help keep me going, seriously much needed and very much appreciated. All you have to do is go to shamanspears.com and purchase my art. It's amazing. So my shaman spears are obviously uniquely handcrafted energy channeling devices, which I invented myself. They all have copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world down the insides. And they're painted with crop circles from around the world on the outsides. And I do next day shipping on all orders. I also have these really cool headdresses I just made, which can be sized to any head shape or any head size. And my I Believe in Humans t-shirts actually have the Apollo's Odyssey show logo on the back. And there's only 30 of them made. And then I will never make any more of these again. I'll do a new design next time. So if you would like the first ever Apollo's Odyssey YouTube shirts to promote my show, there you go. There's some left. I think there's about 15 left, maybe less now. And I actually have some amazing Orgonite daggers I've been working on. These ones are mostly all sold out, but I have some amazing ones at home, which I should be getting up tonight or tomorrow. So really stoked about that. Okay, guys, let's get into this. All right. Where are we going to start with first? Let's just start with Roswell because everyone knows about Roswell. And it's just, and see, this is the thing with this is like, everyone knows about all of these stories. And I get annoyed about it because everyone's always like, whenever I tell people I'm in the UFO community, they always assume that I'm like one of these researchers that just rehash all these old stories that everyone talks about all the time. And honestly, it's the older people in the community. It's the older people. They all just want to talk about these same stories, and it annoys me. And honestly, I don't know much about them. So, because I don't bother to go here and look at all this evidence of like all these cases from like 50 years ago because I've seen UFOs with my own two eyes and I don't need to prove to myself that people are seeing UFOs, but like I just feel that it's important to familiarize myself with these stories and maybe you guys can become familiar with them as well. So let's just go with the standard story, Roswell, which obviously was supposedly debunked and was a weather balloon. But I highly doubt that. Okay, so, and this is from the official Roswell newspaper. Okay, in July 1947, something happened northwest of Roswell during a severe thunderstorm. Was it a flying saucer? Was it a weather balloon? What happened? The answer is nothing for many years until leading UFO researcher Stanton Friedman came across the story in the early 1980s and began the search for information and witnesses. That research brought him to Roswell, looking for the public information officer who had been at Roswell Army Airfield in 1947. That officer was Lieutenant Walter Hott. Hott. That's a funny name. Hott. I'm so hot. Anyways, he lived in Roswell and remembered the press release and the orders from his commanding officer. Friedman's investigation also led to many others, both military and private, who had information to add to the Roswell incident story. Stepping into the picture very strongly in the late 1980s were Don Schmidt, Kevin Randall, and Tom Carey. Since then, Schmidt and Carey have dedicated their research to Roswell. The debris covered by rancher W.W. MacBrazel was gathered by the military from the Roswell Army Airfield under the direction of Base Intelligence Officer Major Jesse Marcel on July 8, 1947. Public Information Officer Lieutenant Walter Hott, I'm sorry, it's just such a funny name, Hott, issued a press release under orders from Base Commander Colonel William Blanchard, which said basically that we have in our possession a flying saucer. The next day, another press release was issued, this time from General Roger Ramey, stating it was a weather balloon. That was the start of the best known and well-documented UFO cover-up. So this is crazy. It's like, how do you find something that's obviously, it seems that it was obvious to them it was a flying saucer. And then they're like, oh, it's a weather balloon. I actually kind of went through this on a previous show, what weather balloons actually look like. And I'm sorry, but I mean, maybe from far away, but up close in person, they don't really look anything like a flying saucer. Uh, okay, but continue on here. Once it became public, the event known as the Roswell incident, the crash of an alleged flying saucer, the recovery of debris and bodies, and the ensuing cover up of the military was of such magnitude and so shrouded in mystery that 70 years later, there are still more questions than answers. And, apparently, from what I've heard, there were bodies uncovered and they were brought to the Air Force Base in Ohio. I forget what that base was called. If anyone knows that, throw it in the comments. But anyway, books have been written and TV documentaries have been filmed. Oh, Dayton. I'm pretty sure that's what's called. Witnesses have come forward and skeptics have issued rebuttals to the incident, and the debate continues. The International UFO Museum and Research Center, located at Main Street, is a nonprofit corporation founded in the fall of 1991 by Walter Hott. Okay, so that's an ad, so I'm gonna skip that. Okay. Okay, so basically it's just saying what all is there, and that was basically that for that article. I'm sorry, that wasn't super informative. But, I'm just going to sit here and tell you what I know. Okay, so apparently they found this supposed flying saucer, and it was printed in all the newspapers, like all over the country, and everyone's freaking out about it. And then the next day they retracted. They're like, you know what? That was actually just a weather balloon. And it's like, why would you go to all the trouble of, releasing this in the newspaper if if it was a weather balloon? I mean, that's a pretty easy, that's a hard mistake to make. I mean, you can't really switch those two things up very well. I mean, I've seen what a weather balloon looks like, and I know what flying saucers look like, and they don't really look very similar, except maybe from far away, but not up close in person. And there's been a lot of accounts of these whistleblowers coming forward saying that they interviewed, apparently, I believe there was like 3 aliens that were in it supposedly, and like 2 of them were dead upon impact, and 1 of them was still alive, and they brought it to this base in Dayton, Ohio. I believe it was Dayton. Here, let me go back and look. Oh, I'm sorry, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so that story is kind of interesting because it's very much like another story that happened recently where the New York Times came out about a year ago and said, hey, we found these UFOs. I think they said something to the extent of they found a UFO. The UAP task force had found like a UFO on some archaeological dig, and then they came out and retracted it the next day. And it was very much the same thing as the Roswell incident, but this is just happening now. So you see, they always want to come back and say it's a weather balloon. And I really feel that what this is they're testing the public. I think that's what happened first with the Roswell incident. It was kind of like something where, I don't know, I feel like these incidents were happening before, but in this particular one, they're like, you know what, we're going to test the public, see what they think, and then we're going to retract it the next day. And so they just did this again recently, obviously a year ago, with the New York Times article that was put out and then retracted the next day. And they always just want to seem to default it to weather balloons. And, I do see how from far away, a weather balloon can very much look like a UFO, but not up close in person. Jermaine here says there's no mistaking a spaceship for a freaking weather balloon. Yeah, I totally agree with you, okay? It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay, so, that's the Roswell incident. And obviously that is like the first kind of UFO incident that really started everything. I mean, I think there was the Betty and Barney Hill case might have been before that, but this is the one that really got everyone going. And a lot of whistleblowers have come forward and said that from that crash, they were able to bring these supposed beings and the remnants of the crash to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And then after that, I guess they may have backwards engineered some flying saucers since then and some anti-gravity technology. I mean, I heard a lot of accounts of that from, people that have been coming forward since the end of World War II about it. So, I mean, it has to be true if like real, people that worked in the military and have a lot to lose by coming forward and saying these kind of things are coming forward and saying these kind of things. Okay, so let's see what case we have next here. This one's kind of funny. This is the Shag Harbor incident. So this is apparently Canada's version of Roswell. So this is the Canadian Roswell event. There's a French Roswell event that I'm going to get into after this, actually. But this happened in a place called Shag Harbor, which Shag Harbor, I'm assuming maybe it was a place in the 60s where like hippie people got wild or something. Oh no, apparently it's about a bird. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that. Okay. So this is the local newspaper, I believe, in the area of Shag Harbor. So the Shag Harbor UFO incident. An extraordinary event. An extraordinary event in 1967 would practically put the small fishing village of Shag Harbor on the map. Located at the southern tip of Nova Scotia, this royal community would be host to one of the best documented UFO events of the past 40 years. Named after the shag, a bird of the cormorant family, the harbor was literally left off most maps of most maps of the time, but it would be changed once and for all. The tiny fishing village has always had stories of giant sea serpents, man-eating squid, and ghost ships. The list of local color would see one more addition to the list, a story of a visit of a mysterious flying craft of unknown origin. This craft would visit the waters of Shag Harbor, permanently stamping the village's name in the public eye. Orange lights in the sky. The first indication of this mysterious occurrence would come from local residents who noticed strange orange lights in the sky on the night of October 4th, 1967. Most witnesses agreed that there were 4 orange lights that evening. 5 teenagers watched these lights flash in sequence and then suddenly dive in a 45-degree angle towards the water's surface. The witnesses were surprised that the lights did not dive into the water but seemed to float on the water approximately 1/2 mile from the shore. Witnesses at first thought they were watching a tragic plane crash and quickly reported as much to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which was located at the Barrington Passage. Coincidentally, RCMP Constable Ron Pound had already witnessed the strange lights himself as he drove down Highway 3 en route to Shag Harbor. Pound felt that he was seeing 4 lights, all attached to one craft. He estimated the craft to be about 60 feet long. The response. Constable Pound made his way to the shore to get a closer look at the phenomenal sight. He was accompanied by Police Colonel, or Corporal, I'm not sure, Victor Werbecki, Constable Ron O'Brien, and other local residents. Pound clearly saw a yellow light slowly moving on the water, leaving a yellowish foam in its wake. All eyes were glued on the light, and as it slowly either moved too distant to be seen or dipped into the icy waters. Coast Guard cutter number 101 and other local boats rushed to the spot of the sighting, but by the time they arrived, the light itself was gone. However, the crewmen could see the yellow foam, indicating that something had possibly submerged. Nothing else could be found that night, and the search was called off at 3 a.m. The RCMP ran a traffic check with the Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax and NORAD radar at Buccaro, Nova Scotia. They were told that there were no missing aircraft reported that evening, either civilian or military. The following day, the Rescue Coordination Center filed a report with the Canadian Forces headquarters in Ottawa. This report stated that something had hit the water in Shag Harbor, but the object was of unknown origin. The HMCS Granby was ordered to the location where divers searched the bottom of the ocean for several days, but without positive results. Soon the story of the mysterious crash at Shag Harbor died as quickly as it had begun. That is until 1993. Oh wow, that's the year I was born. As the original story faded, those papers and newscasts, several theories were put forward. One explanation was that a Russian spacecraft had crashed, which would explain the presence of a Russian submarine in the area. There were also the rumor of American involvement in the follow-up investigation, but there were no official statement from the United States. The Shag Harbor incident would have a new life breathed into it through the efforts of MUFON investigator Chris Stiles. The case intrigued him so much that he decided to search for more details. Stiles found the names of many original witnesses through newspaper clippings and were able to interview many of them. Okay, I think that's the general gist of the case. Let me see here if there's anything else important here. Yeah, okay. So this is interesting. So that is the Canadian Roswell. So there you go. It seems like every country kind of has their own Roswell incident. And that is interesting. That it could very well be Russian craft, although I don't think the Russians have really been promoting that they have been doing a lot with like spacefaring technology, especially in the 60s. So that's interesting. But I wouldn't put it past them if they were and they're just keeping it a secret. So, that's interesting. But supposedly the Russians are working with the more positive ET races. From what I heard, us Americans or, the major corporations that kind of are in cahoots with our government work with the more negative ET races. And then the Russians work with the more positive ones. So that's kind of interesting. And that's why, and I feel that's probably why we're always kind of pushed against each other and supposedly always almost ready to go into war with each other. I feel like the Russians should be our allies, personally. I'm just going through the comments here. William says, I caught a Tic Tac UFO last weekend. If you'd like to see, let me know. Oh, yes. Of course. Please send that to me. If you would like to reach me, my website, Apolla's Odyssey, or no, my website is apollasteria.com, and I always have it in the show description. So you just go to my website, and there's a contact section in my website that will go to my email. So if you would like to send that to me, I would love to actually get that on Third Phase and Moon. I could possibly get that up and have tons of viewers on that if you would like. So please send that to my comment section on my website, which is apollasteria.com, or you can also find that in the description of tonight's show. Okay. Oh, Jermaine here says that the Russians have a secret space program according to SSP insider Johann Fritz. Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think they have their own, though, which is supposedly working with the more positive ETs. From what I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not. Okay. Now, let's get to the French Roswell case. Okay. So this one is actually, this happened in the lavender fields in France, which is a very beautiful place. They don't have a photo of it on this article, but this place is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's just like fields and fields of lavender. I would love to go there one day and do a photo shoot. But, sorry, let me take a drink here. Okay, so this is in 1965 in Valenciennes, France. And this is France's Roswell. So near the French village of Valenciennes, farmer Maurice Mass was smoking a cigarette just before starting work at 5:45 a.m. on July 1st, 1965, when an object came out of the sky and landed in a lavender field 200 feet away. Annoyed and assuming that a helicopter had made an unauthorized landing, he walked towards it. However, he soon saw it was no helicopter but an oval shaped structure resting on four legs. In front of it stood two figures not quite 4 feet tall, dressed in tight gray green clothes. Their heads were oversized with sharp chins, and their eyes were large and slanted. They were making a grumbling noise, quote unquote. One of the biggest one of the beings pointed a pencil-like device at Mass, paralyzing him in his tracks. The figures entered the UFO and flew away, and the witnesses needed 20 minutes to recover his mobility. In its wake, the object left a deep hole in a moist area that soon hardened like concrete. Plants in the vicinity decayed, and analysis found a higher amount of calcium at the landing site than elsewhere. So this is a lot like the Kansas case I uncovered on the first part of this two-part episode. So kind of interesting. I mean, it really like left evidence, clear evidence that something had been there, and it left a mineral and obviously a high content of calcium in the soil. So that's really fascinating. The Valenzuela case is considered one of the classic UFO reports. Investigations by official and civilian agencies confirmed Mass's sincerity and good character. A laboratory study of the affected soil and plants confirmed the occurrence of an unusual event. Subsequently, Mass confided that in the course of the encounter, he experienced some sort of communication with the entities. Oh, that's interesting. I wish I would get more into that. Okay. So, looks like we have two more cases left here. So those are, obviously the Roswell case for the United States, and then the Canadian Roswell case and the French Roswell case. Okay, just reading the comments here. Jermaine here says, Corey Good talks about global galactic global league of nations where all the UN countries have a starfleet. Pretty cool. Matthew Meinhardt says, do you know what a medbed is? Yes, I do, actually. I actually talk about it in my Solutions for Humanity presentation. Apparently, so I've been talking about this in my presentation for a while, and apparently there are some countries that are actually bringing it out right now, the technology. So it's officially in the public now. It's not something that is, a secret anymore. I believe it's China is starting to talk about it and saying they have some. And I think there's another country too. I'm not sure which. I'm sure the United States has had it for like 40 years already, and they just don't care to help people and use it. But interesting, definitely. Okay, so let's see the next incident here. I already have people are commenting incidents in the chat here, but I already have some ready to go. So if there's any really cool ones you'd like to send me information on, again, go to the comments section of my website. That is apollasteria.com. You can send me whatever information you'd like to send me, and I may go over it on the show. Okay. This is UFO spotted over O'Hare. This is a very short article, but this happened in 2006, I believe. And it's kind of fascinating. Kind of funny, too. UFO spotted over O'Hare. Several United Airlines employees say they watched a flying saucer hover over Chicago's busy O'Hare International Airport for several minutes last November, which is in 2007. Descriptions vary slightly, but everybody seems to agree the silent UFO sat in the sky for several minutes just before sunset, November 7th, then shot up through the sky, leaving a noticeable hole. Oh, a noticeable hole in the dense cloud layer. The Chicago Tribune digs into the story, interviewing United employees and even going as far as filing a Freedom of Information Act request, which prompted the Federal Aviation Administration to change its tune. Interesting. And for those of you out there who don't know this, the Freedom of Information Act is actually a really amazing thing. It's part of the I believe it's part of the Constitution, and it's basically this act where, through the freedom of information, any civilian can request to have information on anything the government is doing. And so supposedly a lot of information brought forward by the secret space program whistleblowers and people like that were confirmed through the Freedom of Information Act. So that's kind of how I first heard about the act, but it's definitely a good thing to know about. And it can be used in certain cases. So while several United workers swear they saw something strange, and one reportedly experienced some religious issues, quote unquote, over the incident, I don't know what that means. What is religious issues? Like, they thought they were the only ones in the universe, and they got a little freaked out when they saw an alien. Is that what that means? Seriously, like, I just want to take a minute on that because this is like, to me, this is a problem with some of the old timers out there. It's like, I feel like one of the main reasons for the secrecy and the kind of wait for full disclosure is the fact that they're supposedly so worried that these, like, kind of a lot of these more like senior citizen types, now they'd be senior citizens. Back in the day, like in the 60s, you probably would have been younger people, but a lot of them tend to be, more Bible thumper types, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, a lot of them are very by the books kind of Bible type person, and they feel that aliens can't be real because of that. And I just want to say, I believe in God and I grew up going to church, and I feel that just because you believe in aliens doesn't mean that you can't believe in God. I mean, in my opinion, God created the entire universe, the entire world, or spontaneously created it, or, whatever God, he, she, it is. And it came into being. And that's not just planet Earth, but many planets and many solar systems all over the universe. So, just, you don't have to have a religious breakdown if you see an alien or a flying saucer. That's kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that you're the only person, that us here on planet Earth are the only people or beings in the entire universe. In my opinion, that is a narcissistic way of thinking. I'm sorry, but that's really how I feel. Because if you believe that, you believe the entire world revolves around you, the entire universe. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't. So that's just what I have to say about that. Anyway, religious issues, quote unquote, over the incident. The official FAA line is that a weather phenomenon, quote unquote, caused the sighting. Yeah, right. How does a weather phenomenon look like a UFO or a flying saucer? I don't understand that. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense to me. That night was a perfect atmospheric condition in terms of low cloud ceiling and a lot of airport lights. FAA spokeswoman Elizabeth Isham Corey told the Trib. When the lights shine up on the clouds, sometimes you see funny things. Yeah, whatever. O'Hare controller and union official Craig Burzike, who didn't spot the UFO, did spy a little bit of humor. To fly 7 million light years to O'Hare and then to turn around and go home because your gate was occupied is simply unacceptable, he said. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's really funny. I fly into O'Hare all the time, constantly, because I'm from Illinois originally and my family is still there. And I also, believe it or not, always fly with United. So it's really interesting. So that's a short article for you all, but obviously that's one that is very credible because so many people saw it and it was at an airport. Dodge the Badger here says it was a new weather balloon fueled by swamp gas. Yes. They just love to call them swamp gas and weather balloons, don't they? I'm sorry, but weather balloons don't come in and stop and then zip away going like a million miles an hour. That's not so you can like some of these cases I understand, but a lot of them that involve like craft coming in and pausing and then shooting away, like going like several hundreds of miles an hour. Weather balloons don't do that. So that should be evidence enough as it is that it's not a weather balloon. Sorry. Okay. Just going back through these comments here. Okay, I have one more case to share with you guys, and then that's the end of this two-part series. Let me see here. This one is kind of a longer one, though. So this is the Travis Walton case. Obviously, this is one of the major ones that everyone always talks about. This is the one the movie was made of, and I actually know someone who knows of him. Apparently, he's on the mountain that Disclosure Con will be held this year. And hopefully I may actually be able to interview him at some point. I have talked to someone about doing this, so that may happen at some point. But obviously, this is a case that everyone likes to talk about, so I can't do this episode without covering this one. So, UFO alien abduction still haunts Travis Walton. Close encounters of the fourth kind, that's when a person claims to have been kidnapped by a UFO and its reportedly otherworldly occupants. Of course, there's no tangible evidence that anyone has ever been taken aboard an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but there are those who claim they've been abducted and their stories are chilling. Travis Walton's terrifying account is the stuff movies are made from, and he joins us on the Huffington Post Weird News podcast to talk about that day 40 years ago when the then 22-year-old logger says he was knocked unconscious and woke up to find he was surrounded by ETs aboard their ship. It was a metallic glowing disc making some very strange noises, Walton said. The closer I got to it, the more scared we all got, and they were swearing at me to get away from there. And when I got up close, it suddenly got louder and started to move. I jumped for cover and then jumped up to run back to the truck, and that's when this blast of energy hit me. And I just felt this numbing shock go through my body. But the crew said it threw me through the air 10 or 20 feet, and I landed in a way where that they were immediately certain it had killed me, and they fled. The incident began on November 5th, 1975, after a long day of work in the Sitgreaves National Forest near Heber, Arizona. Walton and 6 other loggers were heading home when they suddenly saw a 40-foot diameter shiny disc hovering in the air. Walton first told his extraordinary story in his 1978 book, The Walton Experience, which became a 1993 film, Fire in the Sky. His account has just been turned into a candid documentary, Travis, the True Story of Travis Walton. Walton reveals the terrifying details of his experience at the hands of several non-human beings and his feelings of suffocation and fear that he was dying as the event unfolded. When I was first able to focus my eyes good enough, I was still on the table, and as soon as I saw this face and knew it wasn't human, I tried to hit it away from me. They were much smaller than me, and I think that's the reason they gave up. Once they found out they couldn't control me, they split. I was absolutely terrified. Walton, pictured at right, was declared missing for 5 days, during which his logger buddies fell under suspicion of foul play. When Walton finally turned up again, not knowing how long he'd been gone, an intense investigation was underway, including multiple polygraph physical and psychological tests. He tells Huffington Post about this little known aftermath details, including subsequent research in the forest area, which has shown an unusual growth rate in trees in the immediate vicinity of the encounter. About 15 years later, it was discovered that the trees nearest to where the UFO hovered have been producing wood fiber at 36 times the rate it had in the 85 years before that, Walton says. More recently, a complete core sampling revealed that this thickened growth was only on the side of the trees towards or in the direction that the craft had been. Walton addresses the stigma that he and so many other people who claim encounters with possible alien beings are generally considered unreliable wackos. The scientific evidence of the likelihood of intelligent life in our vicinity has become so overwhelming that the people who believe that we're alone in the universe, those are the kooks. Agreed. That is exactly what I was just saying. To commemorate the 40th anniversary of his close encounter, Walton will speak at the November Skyfire Summit. Okay, that's probably already happened. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So there's the final story for you all, and I hope to interview Travis Walton at some point soon. That would be really cool. Do you guys hear me? Sorry, I think I knocked my mic loose, but let me know if you hear me okay. How about now? Oh, you do hear me now. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Sometimes I knock the mic loose. Okay, so that was all the cases I had to go over with you guys today. And if you have any ideas for my next episode, let me know. I think I might, there's a couple people I have in mind I would like to interview. I think I should interview someone for the next episode just because these last two, I was by myself. So we'll check that out. And, there's a couple people I have in mind. Jermaine, I think you know who I'm talking about. I think I want to get her on here. That would be pretty cool. So, thanks, Renee. Renee says, awesome UFO cases. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I really feel that, it's like everyone always wants to prove something, and it's usually these old timers in the UFO community always want to prove something by bringing up these same old cases all the time. But I see where they're coming from now that I've taken the time to actually go through them and study them myself. I mean, they do have a lot of factual evidence in them, so it is good to hear these kind of cases as opposed to, people saying, oh, they saw this or that. And, it's like you can believe, I believe them. If someone tells me they saw something, I believe them, but it's good to hear these cases that have real factual evidence. It makes it a little more interesting. So yeah. Sorry, just reading the comments here. So I don't know if I'll have a show next Thursday because I will be going out of town for an event. So I'm really stoked about that. And then I'll be climbing a mountain. So pray for me. I hope I survive that. Should be interesting. So, yeah, Mr. Fox here says, Mr. Fox U1 says, Carrie from Camelot was an awesome interview. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love her. I love her interview style. So having her on here was just really, really freaking cool. And if you haven't caught that interview, please go back and check it out. It was from a few weeks ago. And man, that was a really cool interview. And she definitely inspires me a lot. Definitely. Someone said, Paul Fahey says, get old Linda on the show. Are you referring to Linda Moulton Howell? Yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting to have her on. She actually lives in LA, so I could actually bring her on set here. But um, yeah, I actually have already interviewed her, and that interview is on Third Face and Moon. So if you'd like to check that out, look up Linda Moulton Howell, Third Face and Moon. Thanks, Jermaine. Much appreciated. Yes, Rick Mackey. Carrie Cassidy is a trailblazer. You know, her YouTube show was terminated. So if you would like to check out her stuff, just go to projectcamelotportal.com or Project Camelot. Just Google Project Camelot and definitely check out her shows. I mean, she has been bringing the most amazing information forward for, I believe like 10, 15 years now. So I highly recommend looking into her work because it is definitely so important. And she definitely inspires my style. Oh, and the show I did with her, I actually got the most views I've ever gotten on a show. I believe I got, at this point, it's probably close to 7,000 views, maybe more. So that was really cool. But I definitely recommend checking out that episode. All right, guys. Again, before I go, I want to share with you my amazing artwork because this is what funds my show and keeps me going. And, it's not just a donation to my show. I mean, these are real, legit, uniquely handcrafted energy chilling devices, which I invented myself. I signed myself. I charged myself, and I charge all these devices onto an energetic collective. So through the ideal quantum entanglement. So every new device I make makes the whole collective stronger. Every healer or any person that has their own spear and charges it or runs energy into it, charges the entire collective. And I'm making more new spears all the time and adding them to the collective. So, I mean, this collective, I probably made hundreds at this point. So it's a very powerful collective, and a lot of very unique people have them. I also have autographed them, if that means anything to you. Some people have asked me for autographs. Instead of just, sending you an autograph, just buy a spear that has my autograph on it. It's way cooler. And I have these smaller priced ones that are only $55 to $77. If the bigger ones are a bit much for you. These are the Shaman Spears minis. And they make great gifts. A lot of people ask me, what do I do with them? Like, if you don't know how to do any sort of energy work, I mean, for me, like, I do quantum touch energy work. So I like to, with that, we kind of channel energy like life force, like chi energy out our hands. And then, normally we do it out our hands. So holding one of these, it amplifies energy like times 10 because there's magnets and quartz all down the insides of them because the bamboo is hollow. So really awesome. I also, like I said at the beginning of the show, I ship them out the very next day with all orders, sometimes same day. So you don't have to worry about waiting a long time for them. Right now. I will be leaving town pretty soon here, in like a week or so. But yeah, and I have these amazing headdresses that I created myself. Everything on here I created myself. So would be much appreciated if you check it out. And that's what helps fund my show, since I'm not making very much from YouTube right now. It'd definitely be much appreciated. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining tonight's show. I really had a lot of fun with you all. And until next time on Apolla's Odyssey, over and out. Bye, guys.